And with control over all of the money of this country and all of the money and money creation powers of practically every country on earth, they can buy whatever they want. I was just reading an article the other day that said they had done a study using computer models and huge computers and information from corporate ownership in this world today, and they've narrowed it down to the fact that 50 corporations control 80% of the wealth of this nation, the world. And so that is very believable when you understand that with money you can buy just anything you want, really. And you can buy the influence over government to force them or encourage them or entice them to create the laws that you want, and thereby do things such as register your birth, a legal name, essentially making a slave out of you, allowing the government or forcing the government to use you and your labor as collateral for the national debt, and so on. And, you know, again, you can learn more about the money system on the internet, but let me just demonstrate how the money system works and how it is used to enslave us all. I was going to have a bowl with me, but I don't have one, but I'm going to just take 10 pennies or 10 coins from my little purse here, and I'm going to put them in my hand. Okay, I have 10 pennies in my hand. Now, let's assume that those coins represent the money supply in this country of Canada, our country called Canada. Now, you have to accept for a moment until you learn for yourself the truth of what I'm about to tell you. So just accept it for now and then go about trying to prove me wrong if you wish. All of the money in this country is borrowed. And it is borrowed from the banks. That's just a fact. It's borrowed. So therefore it has to be paid back. So if we as individual men and women do not borrow the money, and if we as corporations, if you will, do not borrow the money, and if the government doesn't borrow money from these banks, there is no money. We don't have any money in the country. But here's where the plot thickens and it becomes very, very sinister. It would be bad enough if we had to borrow this money, which really should be created by government and given to us, because it's supposed to be a medium of exchange and that's all it is. So it has no more importance than that. But let's assume that all the money is borrowed from these banks, which it is, and they charge an interest rate, right? And although we don't have to pay all the money back that we borrowed right away, and maybe in some cases, in the case of government, it probably isn't paid back at all, principal, for a long, long time. That's why the debt keeps increasing. They charge interest. So let's get to that interest. Let's assume that the interest rate is 10%. And now again, this is all of the money supply, the total money supply in Canada. Now, let's assume that the first year or the first interest period is up and interest is due and payable to the banks. Okay? So we take the first interest payment and we give it to the banks. Now, answer this one question for yourself. Is it mathematically possible or impossible to repay the debt? Remembering, of course, that our money is all borrowed, and it is borrowed at interest. So now we are working in slavery. We are trying to do what is literally impossible to do, to repay a debt repay money at interest when the interest is never created. So that is the problem. That is the system under which we are slaving, and will never come out of slavery. No matter how hard we work, no matter how long we live, it'll never happen. It's that simple. So, now let's get back to the control that seems to be exerted, or that is exerted over us. And let's talk about that for just a moment. Now, the Bible also talks about God being no respecter of persons, and that always stuck with me when I read that. I thought, well, he can't be talking about us, because, you know, God created man and must love him and was proud of his creation and so on, so he would respect us as well, I would think. So that used to always bother me, until I learned that a person is not a man. A person is something different. A person is a legal term. And so we have a thing called the International Bill of Human Rights. And this bill includes 3 different documents: the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And this document is enforced and administered by the United Nations, the Office of the High Commissioner. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was authored actually by a Canadian for the most part. But it has been adopted and ratified, or signed and ratified, by Canada. The International Bill of Human Rights, at least the last 2 covenants have, and they are legally binding on Canada, okay, and all of its agents. Now it's interesting because what the documents say in relation to what the Bible teaches us as well. It starts off at Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and says, all human beings, now remember, human beings, not persons, are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So we're all equal. You see, begs the question, why is it others have sway or authority over me? You know, they really don't, but so how is it that it's being practiced that way? So we go on to Article 6, we'll probably get the answer here, okay? It says that everyone, which includes, by the way, persons, it includes citizens, it includes human beings. But it certainly at least includes human beings, because they're not saying person, but because it says everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. So obviously, the law, if you will, and this Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes that every human being has the right to recognition as a person, which has to be something different than what we already are. Now, this brings me to a very important point. If we do not waive that right, guess what? Every agent in the system, every cop, every judge, every CRA agent, and on, assumes that you have asserted that right to recognition as a person. And that's very significant, because not only does it make you something that you're really not, and bring you under the authority of government, it subjects you to all of their statutes and acts. Because every one, including the Income Tax Act, for example, applies to persons. It doesn't say anything about human beings in there. It's all about persons, just like every other act, with rare exceptions, such as maybe the Criminal Code. There's some of the Criminal Code that applies to human beings. A lot of it applies to persons. So this is how we, first of all, become subject to their authority, because we don't tell them that we don't want to be a person, or recognized as a person, so they make the assumption we are. And the solution is for us to come forward and to put them on notice and say, I waive my right, my human right, to recognition as a person everywhere, or everywhere as a person before the law is how they worded it. So you see, I don't know if I can make it any simpler than this. That is it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more that I would encourage you to learn and suggest that you need to learn before you realize who you really are and how you can actually come out of this system. Are you supposed to come out of the system? Should you? I don't know. That's up to you. But I'll tell you, the Bible says in Revelations 18:4, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her iniquities. Now I'm going to end because I've achieved the purpose, I believe, of this short video. I'm going to end by giving you a couple of websites to visit to start your studies, and I hope that you do, and I hope you follow the suggestions and the path to freedom, and you can. It's not really going to be that difficult. Well, I shouldn't say that. It is simple. Maybe it's going to be difficult. I really don't know. But the first site I would suggest is www.naturalgod.com. That's www.natural, N-A-T-U-R-A-L-G-O-D, all one word, .com. The other one is www.eternallyaware.com. Eternallyaware.com. And on that site you'll find tons of videos that educate you concerning the International Bill of Human Rights, if you will, and how to invoke them and so on. The other site, Natural God, will lead you to also, I think, a greater understanding of what is going on. And I want to tell you that we have, that's, I will say, our site, and it is where you'll find or have access to a process, and a process that involves filing one document with certain government agents, 60 days later if necessary another document, and 60 days later if necessary taking it to the United Nations for investigation of a violation of our human rights, if it ever comes to that. I don't think it will. And I want you to understand too that we're not alone in this. There are people in government today that are working with us, that are attempting to assist us in achieving the objective of becoming free and servants of God and not servants of government or man or the international bankers, if you will. So that's it for now. I hope you found it exciting, and I hope you will continue your studies.